feel sick. Breakfast, food. Em ơi, cái ăn không? Ok này.
I recall a lot of conversations with colleagues in different Vietnamese universities who were involved in developing teaching materials to incorporate so-called knowledge about ASEAN countries to prepare Vietnamese students for our integration into ASEAN.
When was
also,
that? Like early 2000s?
Yeah, but as I said, that there have been different rounds of efforts. Let's say that. Yeah, so at different stages, then there were different kind of activities or collective efforts. But I'm certainly aware of those efforts. But really, I must say that if you approach an area merely by learning general or generic information about that area, then it doesn't really lead anywhere. But how far, how deep can you go in studying that area or the countries and communities in that area, then requires serious scholarship, and how many teachers who teach those courses actually can say that they are scholars, being able to deliver that kind of knowledge. So remember,
which makes it all the more likely that you're just repeating things that have already out there, right?
I remember a few months ago, I think even last year in Chiang Mai when we were there for the ICAS conference, right? There were panels after panels discussing challenges and opportunities regarding introducing new degrees in ASEAN or Southeast Asian studies at different universities. And I think it's almost, uniform that everyone talks about the lack of interest among students and even academics in teaching about other countries. Right. So it seems that there is an aspiration to want to know, to want to teach about other ASEAN countries, but in the actual, operational level, there is a tendency to talk about oneself or one's home context in more depth.
This gets to another thing I think about, which is I feel like, we're in this age where some things have changed so fast and other things can't change quickly. And so we have this disconnect with what's going on out there. So you just said, there are people who want to teach about, say, ASEAN or Southeast Asia. Well, that can be people like me who established a career doing this, and here I am, and what else am I going to do? But then at the same time, the world has changed so much that, if I reproduce myself, that person is going to have a very difficult time finding a career somewhere. There aren't really jobs for what I do anymore, at least not as many. And then there are all these different and new kinds of jobs that are out there, but teaching people about Southeast Asia doesn't really prepare them for that. And so I feel like there's this disconnect between the massive changes that have taken place in the world and what people can do because they're part of an older world that doesn't or isn't as lively as it once was. And so, the program at VNU, the fact that they're focusing on English, to me is also a sign that they're trying to find some way to make, this, like say, area studies, which struggles to find students, to be able to find students, to say, okay,
for recruitment purposes,
this
yes.
Southeast Asia thing, maybe you're not all excited, but English, it's going to help you. Come on.
Yes,
Okay, I can't really blame that. I think it's, but I think there are other things you could do in terms of integrating stuff with new media and stuff like that, of course. But, I can understand,
as I said, right, as I said right from the beginning, that it's very much in response to the global trend of English as a medium of instruction kind of practice these days.
Which gets to the other thing that the VNU thing reminded me of is what I made a video before about Minerva schools, and not just them, but I think there's like Duke Kunshan and NYU, like Shanghai and Abu Dhabi, and all these new schools that are being created that are really innovative, and they're creating entirely new curriculi. Curricula.
Lum and le.
Curriculum. That's totally innovative what they're doing. They're trying to think of like how knowledge is created, how we think, and to build curricula up from the bottom like that. But they're also totally aware of the global world that we're in, and they're trying to integrate that. But what I find is that it's really, in a sense, very superficial in that but again, this is in a sense not to critique, but to point out that they recognize something, which is that in today's world, you can be a member of a global elite that functions perfectly fine in English everywhere. If your English is good and you're skilled as an engineer, an IT person, new media, bio, whatever, you can work in Buenos Aires just as well as you can work in Beijing. And so what do you need to know beyond English in your field? Well, little coffee talk things that you can mention about the societies, a few words, but you can do just fine without a deep knowledge of other societies. And I think, some of these schools are, if they're not thinking about this, they are sort of solidifying.
Perpetuating that.
Well, they're solidifying this emerging fact.
Yeah.
Which again makes you wonder then where does a deeper knowledge of languages and cultures and societies and histories actually fit or even matter?
Yes, I think that is why there exists a lot of competing discourses and competing practices and competing arguments regarding language issues. So together with the, recognizing the fact that more and more English medium programs and courses and degrees are being created every day around the world. There have also been discussions and pushes against that phenomenon or that trend. And a lot of critics, and actually
does any of that amount to anything?
No, I think, yes. I think so. There have been governments and institutions who have made a very firm stance against the kind of uncontrollable you could say invasion of EMI mentality. And so, yes, I said people start to recognize that you cannot get anywhere and also according to the latest systematic review of English as a medium of instruction and whether or not EMI or learning through the medium of English equals knowledge building, equals language proficiency improvement. There is very little evidence showing such connection. So that really pushes a lot of scholars, to reconceptualize and to rethink about the way we have been. What have you been doing with all this? So as I said, of course, my field, for example, language studies or even international education studies, there are tons and tons of people who are pushing against
Okay,
that.
I see what you're saying. I mean, at the very, very elite level, it seems to work, but once
Yeah.
you start to go below
No,
that, then you
no.
get the mediocritization of knowledge
True.
everywhere. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
But yeah, but also even the
Or not, I mean, even if you look at it like the
or even the mere
disadvantagization for students of them,
Sure.
yeah, something like that.
and
yeah.
also even the mere assumption and wishful thinking that learning through an EMI program would automatically improve your language proficiency. You know, studies around the world
yeah.
have found very little evidence.
I see.
Yeah, very, very little evidence at all levels. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Look at the conversations we have even when we're sick.
I don't know, but I'm so hungry. Let
Let's
me
eat.
eat.
Yeah.